I gave my daughter Emily everything, my time, my money, my heart. And on her wedding day, she thanked Brian's parents while banishing me to a dusty table by the parking lot. But when I found out they stole even more from me behind my back, I didn't stay silent. I showed them exactly what happens when you underestimate a mother who's finally done being a doormat. I found out how wrong I was on a bright, cruel afternoon in Napa Valley. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, or at least the happiest since the day I first held Emily, swaddled up like a pink peach in my arms. I'd spent over $100,000, money I didn't exactly have lying around, to give my daughter the wedding she dreamed of. You know the kind, a fancy outdoor ceremony at some vineyard so pretty it almost hurt to look at it. Rows of white chairs, chandeliers hanging from the trees, and flowers so heavy with perfume they made your head spin. I'd fought tooth and nail to pull it off, skimped on new shoes, postponed getting my car fixed, dug into the retirement savings. Donna, my sister, and I had been building up like squirrels hoarding acorns. And not once did I grumble. Not once, because that's what you do when you love someone more than yourself, right? When I pulled up that afternoon, wearing my best dress, navy blue, with little pearls stitched into the collar, I thought, they're going to be so happy to see me. They're going to be proud. I checked in at the little table up front, where a bored teenager handed me a gold-trimmed place card. I smiled, already picturing myself sitting at the family table, beaming at my girl in her wedding gown. Then I looked at the card. Table 22. Confused, I wandered through the maze of linen-covered tables. Table 1 had a big "Reserved for Family" sign. Table 2 had Brian's parents laughing and clinking champagne glasses. Table 3, 4, 5, cousins, old college friends, all inside the tent with the chandeliers and the shaded fans. Table 22? It was shoved halfway between the edge of the reception area and the gravel parking lot. No pretty view. No flowers. Just a couple of folding chairs thrown around a rickety table like an afterthought. I had to swat at flies while I stood there blinking. My heart squeezed tight in my chest. I must have made a mistake, right? Maybe someone mixed up the cards? Surely Emily didn't mean for her own mother to sit here. I hiked up my skirt and made my way back to the reception tent, hunting for Kelly, the wedding planner Emily had raved about. I finally found her near the dance floor, barking orders at some poor kid trying to string up fairy lights. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep my voice even. "There must be a mix-up with the seating. I'm the bride's mother." Kelly didn't even blink, just pushed a clipboard into my chest and chirped, "You're at table 22, Susan." That's what the couple requested. I stood there like a fool, my hands tightening around the clipboard until my knuckles went white. Requested. That word echoed around my brain like a slap. Did they really think I'd stay silent? That I'd just go sit among the catering staff and pretend this was normal? I walked away slowly, my legs shaking, feeling about 100 years old. And it only got worse. Later, when the champagne was flowing and everyone was gathered for toasts, I steeled myself. Maybe Emily would call me up, honor me somehow. A little speech, a thank you, something. Instead, she lifted her glass high and said, "We want to thank Brian's incredible parents for making this day possible. We couldn't have done it without them." My ears rang. I sat there in the dust, in my best navy dress, swallowing my pride like a mouthful of glass. No mention of me. Not a single glance in my direction. I caught Donna's eye across the lot. She'd driven up from Arizona just for this, and she looked ready to march up there and tear the microphone out of Emily's hand. But I shook my head. I still had some dignity left, even if nobody else seemed interested in letting me keep it. My anger simmered. Wasn't I the one who cut the check for the deposit? Wasn't it my credit card that paid for the flowers, the venue, the damn open bar? But in that moment, I realized something awful. They weren't embarrassed. They weren't even trying to hide it. To Emily and Brian, I was just background noise, the hired help. I sat there staring at my watered-down wine, feeling smaller and smaller, until the party lights blurred into a messy halo around me. And deep in my gut, something started to shift. A cold, hard little voice I hadn't heard in years whispered, "You don't have to take this." I straightened my shoulders. Maybe they thought they could shove me aside. Maybe they thought gratitude was optional. But they had no idea what kind of woman they were dealing with. Not yet. By the time they started pouring the second round of champagne, I knew I had two choices: sit there and let the shame eat me alive, or get up and reclaim what little pride I had left. So I stood. I brushed the dust off my dress, lifted my chin, and made my way to the restroom to catch my breath. As I slipped inside the cool marble-tiled bathroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My makeup was holding up better than my spirit. My lipstick was still on, my hair pinned just so, but my eyes, they looked hollow. "You're not a fool, Susan," I whispered to myself. "You just loved too much." The bathroom door creaked open behind me. I didn't think much of it until I heard their voices. Emily and Brian. My darling daughter and her brand new husband. I froze, one hand still clutching the sink as they giggled their way into the lounge area right outside the stalls. "Did you see her face when she realized where she was sitting?" Emily snickered. "I almost felt bad." Brian chuckled low. "Almost. She's lucky we let her come at all. I told you my parents would notice if we let that woman sit up front." "That woman?" I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself not to storm out there and cause a scene. And then, like they hadn't twisted the knife deep enough, Brian added, "Oh, and by the way, babe, the upgrade for the honeymoon suite went through. Got the email a minute ago." Emily squealed. "Yes, I can't wait. God, it's gonna be amazing." And honestly, she'll never even notice that little charge on her card. They both laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. My stomach lurched. I didn't need to hear anything else. They'd stolen from me, used my love and my wallet as a stepping stone. And they thought they could get away with it because they figured I'd be too meek, too desperate for scraps of affection to ever call them out. They didn't know me at all. Not anymore. I waited until I heard their footsteps fade down the hall. Then I smoothed my dress, fixed my lipstick, and walked out of that restroom like I owned the damn place. I spent the rest of the reception playing my part, smiling, politely, making small talk with Donna, pretending not to notice the whispers and the pitying glances. Because I had a plan. See, they weren't the only ones capable of playing a role. The next morning, while the newlyweds were probably nursing hangovers in their luxury honeymoon suite, funded courtesy of yours truly, I got to work. First thing, I called my bank and reported my card compromised. Canceled every last pending transaction that hadn't fully cleared, including the florists, the band, the bartender, even the portable toilets. You better believe I made sure that those bills would come crashing back down on Emily and Brian like a house of cards. Then, just for good measure, I dropped a little note to the vineyard manager. Mentioned that some of the vendors hadn't been paid. Mentioned, too, that the primary responsible party seemed to have, let's say, flexible morals. Napa Valley's a small place. Word travels fast. By the time I finished my coffee, I had emails confirming every cancellation. I sat back in my kitchen chair, Donna across from me, both of us sipping our cheapo instant coffee, smiling like a pair of cats who just found the cream. "You sure you want to go through with it?" she asked, her voice low but firm. I didn't hesitate. "Honey," I said, "they made their choice. Now they can live with it." That afternoon, I got a text from Emily. "Mom, the band just left. They said they never got paid." I let the message sit unread. 5 minutes later, another text. "The bartender says the open bar is closed. People are mad." "Where are you?" I chuckled into my coffee. "Oh, sweetie. Mommy's right here. Just not in the way you expected." I pictured the scene. The music cutting off mid-dance. Guests murmuring, glancing around. Brian's parents stiff with embarrassment. Emily's perfect Instagram wedding crumbling around her like a stale wedding cake. And I didn't feel guilty. Not one bit. Why should I? I wasn't the one who chose greed over gratitude. I wasn't the one who forgot who had been in their corner since day one. They made this bed. Now they could lie in it. On a gravel lot, if need be. Donna and I decided to make a little day of it. Drove into town, treated ourselves to a nice lunch at a cafe overlooking the hills. I even splurged on a glass of wine, raising it in a silent toast to lessons learned, to boundaries finally drawn, to the woman I'd finally allowed myself to become. As the sun dipped low and the sky blushed pink over the vineyards, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. But I knew one thing for sure. Emily and Brian had just found out what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. And honey, I was just getting started. By the time we finished our lunch and polished off that second glass of wine, I figured I'd heard the last of Emily's wedding day disaster. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Donna and I were strolling back toward the parking lot, taking our sweet time, when I caught sight of a familiar figure through the rows of parked cars. That loud laugh, sharp as broken glass, gave her away before I even saw her face. Kelly Moore, the wedding planner. She was leaning against her little white SUV, talking animatedly on her phone, a cigarette bobbing between two fingers. It wasn't the polished, polite Kelly I'd met during the planning meetings. No, this version looked real comfortable being nasty. And honey, I know when to mind my own business. But something about the way she threw her head back and cackled made me slow down, just out of her line of sight. I told them from day one, she was saying, her voice dripping with smugness. They wanted the wedding to look like Brian's parents funded everything. Said they didn't want anyone knowing her mom paid a dime. My feet rooted to the gravel. You should have seen the seating chart fight, Kelly snorted. They made me bump her all the way back near the parking lot. And they wanted me to make sure nobody announced her during the reception. Total freeze out. A beat of silence. Then she added, almost laughing. Honestly, I'm glad the band walked out. Serves those spoiled brats right. Bunch of entitled little... I didn't hear the rest. Didn't need to. I turned away, my stomach churning, and marched back toward Donna. They did it on purpose, I said, voice low and shaking. Donna raised an eyebrow. What? They planned it, I hissed. Emily, Brian, from the start. They planned to erase me from the whole damn day. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. Not just anger now. Something deeper. A sorrow so sharp it almost buckled my knees. I wasn't an oversight. I wasn't a forgotten name on a guest list. I was a deliberate erasure. They didn't want to share their day with me. They wanted to erase me from it. I think a part of me had been clinging to the idea that maybe it was all a misunderstanding. A bridezilla moment gone wrong. But hearing Kelly's words, that ripped away the last frayed thread of hope. My anger simmered. You want to pretend you did it all without me? Fine. Let's see how you manage when the real bills come due. We were halfway back to the car when Donna grabbed my wrist. You sure you're okay? She asked, searching my face. I gave a tight little smile. Oh, I'm better than okay, honey. I'm done. And that was the truth. I was done explaining myself. Done giving chances to people who thought love was a debt they could walk away from. I climbed into my sedan, slammed the door harder than I meant to, and sat there for a moment, breathing in the old familiar scent of the cracked leather seats. I thought about all the moments that had led here, the school recitals I left work early for, the birthdays I stretched my budget for, the nights I stayed up sewing Halloween costumes by hand because we couldn't afford the fancy ones. Every sacrifice, every dollar, every tear, all leading to this day, where my only daughter thanked another family for her dream wedding and stuck me out by the parking lot like yesterday's trash. No more, I whispered. The engine rumbled to life, and with it, something inside me did too, something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Resolve. That night, back at my little rental house on the edge of town, I opened a new savings account, one with Emily's name nowhere near it. I wasn't planning some big, vengeful plot. That's not my style. But I was making a promise to myself. From here on out, my hard-earned love and money was going where it's earned, not where it's expected. Simple as that. Donna stayed over that night, just to make sure I didn't start second-guessing myself. We drank cheap wine, watched bad television, and laughed until the ache in my chest eased a little. At one point, she nudged me and said, Maybe it's time you finally take that cruise you always talked about. I smiled into my glass. Maybe it is, because for the first time in years I realized I didn't owe anyone a damn thing, especially not gratitude that was never coming. The next morning, I woke up to a half-dozen missed calls and a string of frantic texts from Emily. "Mom, call me now. Please pick up. We need to talk." My finger hovered over the screen. Then I powered the phone off and went to make myself pancakes. Because Emily Carter Walker had made her choices. Now it was time for her to live with them, just like I was about to live with mine. In peace, finally. By Monday morning, the guilt machine was fully cranked up. The landline rang while I was still frying up bacon, and I almost didn't pick it up. But old habits die hard. "Mom?" Emily's voice burst through the receiver, sharp and panicked. "I've been trying to reach you. Why are you ignoring me?" I let the spatula rest against the skillet. "I figured you were busy," I said, keeping my voice as light as I could. She let out a long, theatrical sigh. "Mom, seriously, we need to talk." "Oh, now you need me?" I said sweetly. "Last time I checked, I was just some lady sitting by the parking lot." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then, predictably, she launched into tears. Real or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. "Mom," she whimpered, "it wasn't like that. You're reading too much into it. Kelly screwed up the seating chart. We didn't even notice until it was too late." I leaned against the counter, tapping my fingernail against the receiver. Isn't that funny? According to Kelly, it was very much on purpose. But I kept my mouth shut. Let her dig her own grave. Emily sniffled, "you've always been so sensitive." There it was, that old familiar blame. My anger simmered low and slow. "Emily," I said, my voice calm as a frozen lake. I heard Kelly. More silence. A different kind this time. Heavy. Guilty. "You overheard wrong," she tried. Weakly. I chuckled, a dry little sound. "Honey, I might be old, but I'm not deaf. Or dumb." "Mom, please," she said. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's not like we don't appreciate everything you did." I pictured her standing there, crocodile tears in full display, while Brian hovered behind her, checking his watch, waiting for the drama to be over. "You have a funny way of showing it," I said, charging my credit card without asking, leaving me to sit with the caterers. Thanking Brian's parents for funding the wedding when it was my money, her voice sharpened. "We didn't ask you to pay for everything." I nearly dropped the phone. "Oh, so now that the party's over and the bills are stacking up, I'm the fool for being generous?" I sucked in a slow, steadying breath. "You're right," I said, keeping my voice as even as I could. "You didn't ask," I offered, "because I believed we were family, because I thought you'd be proud to have me there." The bacon sizzled and popped behind me, the smell filling the kitchen. A simple smell. A comforting one. Home. Something Emily clearly didn't understand anymore. "I can't believe you're acting like this," Emily snapped suddenly, her mask slipping. "After everything I've done for you." I almost laughed. "Everything you've done?" I asked, my voice curling into steel. "You're my mother. You're supposed to support me." There it was. The ugly truth. Laid bare. Support meant bankroll. Support meant silent sacrifice. Support meant disappearing when it was convenient. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and smiled to myself. "Honey," I said, "I did support you. But you know what?" I added, my voice calm, steady, and full of the kind of strength it took me a lifetime to find. "You don't get to treat me like a checkbook with a heartbeat." She gasped like I'd slapped her. I hung up before she could recover. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. That afternoon, Donna came over with a box of pastries and 2 cups of gas station coffee. "You hear back from the princess yet?" she asked, settling into my worn kitchen chair like she was preparing for a show. "She tried," I said, laughing. "Tried to guilt-trip me. Told me I was supposed to support her." Donna snorted. "Support doesn't mean turning yourself into a doormat." I nodded, feeling a warmth settle over me that had nothing to do with the coffee. "They're gonna realize real quick," I said, that real support has limits. And they ran right past mine without looking back. We clinked our coffee cups together like champagne glasses. To boundaries. To freedom. To finally choosing ourselves. Around sunset, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emily, it was Kelly. I stared at the screen for a long moment, debating. Curiosity got the better of me. I answered. "Mrs. Carter?" Kelly said, her voice all syrupy sweet now. No trace of the mocking tone I'd heard behind the parking lot. "I just wanted to apologize for any misunderstandings at the wedding. I really hope there's no hard feelings." I raised my eyebrows. "Oh, honey." She must have heard I canceled those vendor payments. "No hard feelings," I said lightly. "Just a little misunderstanding." Great, she said quickly. "You know, if you ever need another event planned, I'd be happy to offer a discount, special for repeat clients." I nearly laughed right there on the spot. "Thanks, Kelly," I said, my voice dripping honey. "But I don't think I'll be needing another wedding anytime soon. And certainly not another betrayal." I hung up, smiling, because something told me this story wasn't quite finished yet. No, not by a long shot. 2 days passed, peaceful ones. I spent my mornings reading out on the little porch, coffee in hand, the sun warming my face like an old friend. I even started jotting down ideas for that Alaskan cruise I'd always wanted, but never dared to book. Freedom had a funny way of tasting sweeter when you hadn't realized how starved you were for it. Then came the knock. Hard. Insistent. Donna was sitting across from me, deep into her second jelly donut, and she raised an eyebrow. "You expecting someone?" "Nope," I said, wiping my hands and getting up slow. Real slow. My gut already told me who it was. I pulled open the front door, and there they were. Emily, arms folded tight across her chest, jaw set like she was preparing for war. And Brian, looming just behind her, wearing that smug, oily smile that made my skin itch. "Mom," Emily said, her voice sugary sweet in a way that made the hairs on my neck stand up. "Can we come in?" I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "You already are," I said dryly. Brian chuckled under his breath, like he thought this was cute. Emily barreled on. "Look, we've all been stressed. Weddings are emotional. Things got blown out of proportion." I just stared at her. She shuffled awkwardly, glancing back at Brian like she expected backup. He jumped in, stepping forward. "We just think it's time to move past all this. Family's family, right? Can't hold a grudge forever." His voice was slick as a salesman's. Donna cleared her throat loudly from the kitchen. I didn't even have to look at her to know she was 1 second away from launching a jelly donut at their heads. I turned back to Emily. "What exactly do you want?" Her smile faltered for just a second. And there it was, the glint of desperation behind the good hair and perfect makeup. "We're actually kinda in a bind," she said, dropping her voice like we were co-conspirators, sharing a secret. "A bind?" I echoed. Brian jumped back in, all business now. There were some unexpected charges after the wedding. The bar tab, the band, the flowers. His voice trailed off expectantly. I bit back a laugh. "Oh, honey, actions meet consequences. Isn't that cute?" "And?" I said. Emily's cheeks flushed red. "And we were hoping you might be able to cover them, just for now. We'll pay you back, of course." "Of course," I said, letting my voice drip with false sympathy. She smiled, thinking she had me. "How much are we talking about?" I asked, purely for my own amusement. Brian pulled a folded paper from his back pocket and read off the number like he was announcing the lottery. $38,492. Donna let out a low whistle from the kitchen. I didn't even blink. "That's quite the unexpected charge," I said. Emily rushed in, speaking faster now. "But if you help us out, we can move on from all this ugly stuff. Start fresh. Like a real family." I looked at her. Really looked. At the girl I raised. At the woman who turned me into a background prop at her own wedding. And I realized something bone deep and final. She wasn't sorry. Not for what she did. Only sorry for the fallout. My anger simmered, low and steady, but I kept my face blank. "Let me get this straight," I said, slowly and clearly, so even Brian's tiny brain could follow. You humiliated me. You stole from me. You treated me like dirt in front of hundreds of people. Emily's face tightened, but she didn't interrupt. And now, I continued, you're here asking for almost $40,000. Emily opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to spin another excuse, but I held up one hand. No, I said simply. The porch seemed to crackle with the word. No? Brian barked, stepping forward like he thought he could intimidate me. I didn't flinch. I just looked him dead in the eye. No, I repeated. Calm. Final. Emily's mouth worked uselessly, trying to form words. But, Mom! You made your choices, I said, and now you can live with them. Brian's face flushed an ugly red. You're just being spiteful, he snapped, over some stupid chair placement at a stupid wedding. I smiled, slow and easy. No, Brian, I'm finally being smart. Emily's eyes filled with tears, real this time, I think. But I didn't budge, because the truth was simple. Forgiveness wasn't a blank check. It had terms, and respect was non-negotiable. You should leave, I said quietly. Brian huffed, turned on his heel, and stomped down the porch steps. Emily lingered for a moment longer, tears spilling down her cheeks. Mom, she whispered, please, I don't know what to do. I softened. Not much, but a little. Grow up, I said, and I closed the door, softly, firmly, not slamming it. I didn't need the drama. The silence afterward was so thick, you could slice it. Donna handed me a fresh cup of coffee, like she was handing a knight a sword. You did good, kid, she said, and I believed her. For the first time in a long, long while, I believed it. You'd think after a flat no, they'd get the hint. But when someone's been fed on your kindness their whole life, when they've grown fat and lazy on your sacrifices, they don't just walk away quietly. No, ma'am. They come back clawing. It started the next day. Donna and I were sitting out on the porch again, sipping iced tea and playing a lazy game of gin rummy. The breeze was warm, the sky clear, and for a moment, it almost felt like old times. Then my phone lit up with a dozen notifications in a row. Donna squinted over her cards. You expecting an army? I picked up the phone, and my stomach dropped. There it was. A Facebook post, public, for the whole town to see. A grainy photo of me at the wedding, seated by the parking lot, captioned by none other than my darling new son-in-law, Brian Walker. Sometimes even family doesn't want to see you succeed. Thanks to certain bitter people, our dream day turned into a nightmare. $40,000 in unpaid bills and broken promises. Some mother. I sat there frozen, the words burning into my eyes. Donna leaned over, saw the screen, and nearly dropped her cards. That little son of a... she barked, catching herself mid-curse. It wasn't just the post. Dozens of comments had already piled up, some from Brian's friends, strangers to me, piling on with words like selfish and toxic. And worse, a few neighbors I knew, people I'd waved to at the grocery store, baked cookies for at holiday parties. They'd left little comments too, not picking sides exactly, but not defending me either. Oh no, so sorry you're going through this. Family drama is the worst. Hope you guys get the support you deserve. Support they deserve? I blinked back the sting in my eyes. I would not cry over a pack of fools. Donna slammed her cards down. We're not letting this stand. I shook my head, setting the phone down on the table like it was something filthy. If I fight back now, they'll just spin it worse, I said. Make me look vindictive, petty. Because that's what abusers do, isn't it? They poke you until you scream, then point and say, look how crazy she is. Donna sat back, arms crossed, face stormy. So what, you just let them drag your name through the mud? I stared out across the street, watching the neighbor's dogs sunbathe in their driveway. So calm, so unaware of all the human nonsense swirling around. No, I said finally. But I'm not fighting them on their battlefield. She raised an eyebrow. Then what's the plan? I smiled a slow, dangerous smile. Oh, honey, I'm gonna fight smart. First things first. I cleaned up my social media, tightened all the privacy settings, unfriended and blocked anyone who even looked like they might stir the pot. Next, I crafted a little message, just a few short sentences, sent only to the people who mattered. Friends I trusted, church ladies who knew me before Emily was even a thought, old coworkers who'd cried with me over coffee, and lost loves. I told the truth. No embellishments. No drama. I've been made aware of some misleading things being posted. I funded my daughter's wedding in full, out of love. Unfortunately, that generosity was taken advantage of. I wish them the best, but I'm choosing to step away from further conflict. Short, sweet, no fire. Because the ones who mattered, they already knew my character. The rest could believe whatever bedtime stories Brian spun. It wasn't my burden to fix their broken compasses. And sure enough, within hours, quiet little messages trickled in. Saw Brian's post. Smelled the BS a mile away. Love you, Susan. You've always been the most generous woman I know. Proud of you for standing tall. Coffee soon? My treat. Each one was a balm. A stitch over the little tears Brian's lies had made. Not everyone was fooled. Not by a long shot. But the real kicker came 2 nights later. There was a knock at the door again. This one softer, hesitant. Donna wasn't there this time. Just me, a half-empty bowl of popcorn, and an old black-and-white movie playing on the TV. I opened the door. And there stood Brian's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Walker, decked out in designer clothes, looking about as uncomfortable as a pair of cats at a dog show. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Walker said stiffly, "We were hoping to have a word." I leaned against the frame, folding my arms. "Funny," I said. "I don't remember getting an apology card from you for the way you treated me at the wedding." Mrs. Walker winced, but pushed ahead. "This isn't about the wedding. It's about resolving things before they get uglier." I tilted my head. "Oh, I thought your son already dragged things through every gutter in town." Mr. Walker cleared his throat. "We understand you're withholding certain payments." I stared at him. "You mean the payments I made in good faith that your son and daughter-in-law tried to steal?" They stiffened like I'd slapped them. Mrs. Walker looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "We could," Mr. Walker said slowly, "reach a compromise, settle quietly. You pay the outstanding vendors. In exchange, Brian deletes the posts." I let that sink in. They were blackmailing me. Polite, upper middle class, Napa Valley blackmail. I almost laughed out loud. Instead, I smiled sweetly. "Tell Brian," I said. "He can keep the posts up for all eternity." Their faces fell. "Because if he pushes me 1 more inch," I continued, voice sharpening like a blade, "I'll be happy to share every last receipt, email, and recording with the world." Their mouths opened, shut, opened again. I stepped back and gently, ever so gently, closed the door in their stunned faces. This time, I didn't just feel strong. I felt free. The next morning felt like breathing clean air for the first time in years. I brewed myself a strong pot of coffee, pulled out a crossword puzzle, and thought, maybe this is it. Maybe the worst is behind me. Wishful thinking, huh? Because just after lunch, a thick envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. My name scribbled in sharp, angry strokes across the front. Donna happened to be over, helping me clean out the linen closet. She spotted it first. "You expecting mail from the devil?" she joked, tossing it onto the kitchen table. Something about it prickled my skin. I slid it open with the butter knife, and the moment I saw what was inside, my stomach dropped clear to the floor. A stack of papers, bank statements, credit reports, legal notices, all tied to my name. Except they weren't my accounts. They were co-signed by Emily Carter Walker. And somewhere, buried in the fine print, my signature. Forgery. I staggered back, nearly knocking my chair over. Donna rushed to my side. "What the heck is it?" I could barely choke it out. "Debt. Tens of thousands of dollars. In credit lines I never opened. In my name." My hands shook so badly the pages rattled. And right there, stapled neatly to the last sheet, was a sticky note, written in a neat, feminine script I recognized all too well. "You always said you'd do anything for me, Mom. Thanks for proving it. Emily." Emily had forged my name on loans. And now, with the payments defaulting, the collectors were coming for me. I stumbled to the couch, the papers clutched to my chest. Donna sat beside me, her face pale with fury. "This has to be illegal," she hissed. "She can't just—" "Oh, she can't," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But she did, because Emily knew something not many others did. There was a time I would have protected her no matter what. A time I would have signed anything she shoved under my nose, believing her intentions were good. That mother was dead now, and in her place sat a woman who wasn't about to roll over and get fleeced." I squared my shoulders and forced myself to breathe. "We call a lawyer," I said. "Today." Donna nodded fiercely. "And the police," she added. "Because this is straight-up fraud." I smiled grimly. "Good thing I kept all my old tax records, all my old bills, everything that proves what's mine and what isn't. Because a lifetime of being the responsible one finally had a payoff. It's funny, isn't it? The habits that made people roll their eyes. Me saving receipts, me triple-checking bank statements, me filing away every boring little document, were about to be the very habits that saved my hide. By that evening, I had a lawyer on retainer. Her name was Miriam Cho, recommended by Donna's cousin, who'd once battled an ugly estate fight and lived to tell the tale. Miriam didn't waste time sugarcoating. "Your daughter committed felony fraud," she said crisply, flipping through the papers. "You have every right to press charges." The words tasted strange on my tongue. My daughter. Felony fraud. Donna squeezed my hand under the table. "Look," Miriam said, her voice softening just a hair. "You don't have to push for prison time. But at minimum, we're filing a formal complaint. That way, if she tries anything else, anything at all, there's a paper trail." I nodded, my throat tight. Because as much as Emily hurt me, betrayed me, disgusted me, I couldn't quite stomach the thought of seeing her in handcuffs. Yet. But Miriam was right about one thing. If I didn't protect myself now, she'd only see it as weakness. And I was fresh out of week. Later that night, alone in the quiet house, I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of tea, staring out at the darkened street. I thought about little Emily, the girl who used to run barefoot through the backyard, shrieking with laughter. The girl who made me macaroni necklaces on Mother's Day and cried when I dropped her off at kindergarten. Where had she gone? Was she buried under layers of entitlement and greed? Or had I never really known her at all? The ache inside me was sharper than any betrayal. It was mourning. Mourning the child I thought I had. Mourning the mother I thought I could be. I pressed my palms flat against the table, grounding myself. "No more," I whispered. "No more mourning, what never was. No more bargaining with ghosts. Tomorrow, I'd file the police report. Tomorrow, I'd take the next step. Because this story wasn't over. Not yet." The next morning dawned gray and heavy, like the sky itself knew the kind of day I had ahead. Donna showed up bright and early, carrying a thermos of strong coffee, and that fire in her belly she always got when she sensed a fight brewing. We were just reviewing the paperwork one last time when my phone buzzed across the table. A number I didn't recognize. I frowned. Donna caught the look. Another one of Brian's idiot friends trying to stir the pot? "Maybe," I muttered, but something about the number felt different, almost cautious. I answered. "Hello?" There was a long pause, just the faint hiss of static. Then a woman's voice, low and uncertain. "Is this Mrs. Carter?" "Who's asking?" I said, sharper than I meant to. "My name's Lindsay," she said. I'm sorry to bother you, but I think you deserve to know what's been going on." Donna leaned in, her face practically glued to mine now. I tightened my grip on the phone. "Go on." "I used to work at the Vineyard," Lindsay rushed on. "The one where Emily's wedding was held. I overheard a lot during the planning meetings. Stuff I didn't feel right about. My heart thudded once, hard and loud. I didn't say anything at the time, she continued. Honestly, I needed the job too bad, but after seeing what they're doing to you online, her voice faltered. I just couldn't stay quiet anymore. I swallowed hard. What exactly did you overhear, Lindsay? She hesitated, then said, Emily and Brian never planned to pay for the wedding at all. Not 1 cent. They told Kelly, your planner, that you were footing the bill, but they'd find a way to make you too embarrassed to back out if things got ugly. I sat there frozen, the words barely making it through the buzzing in my ears. They said if they froze you out enough, Lindsay whispered, you'd be too humiliated to make a scene. You'd just pay everything quietly and disappear. Donna gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. And? Lindsay's voice dropped even lower. Brian bragged about how once they were married, they'd convince you to sign over your house to them too. Said they deserved it, after everything they'd put up with. The room tilted slightly. My house, my tiny little rental, nothing fancy. But it was mine. They wanted that too, not because they needed it, because they thought it was owed to them. As if my love, my money, my home, my life, all of it was just a buffet for them to pick over like vultures. Lindsay, I said, voice trembling. Thank you. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wish I'd said something sooner. You're saying it now, I said, hanging onto my composure by a fraying thread. That counts. We hung up, and I sat there staring at the table for a long moment. Donna reached over, resting her hand on mine. You were never crazy, she said fiercely. You were never overreacting. I blinked back, the sudden sting in my eyes. I hadn't realized until that moment just how badly I'd needed to hear that. By noon, I was sitting across from Miriam again, this time in her sleek downtown office. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, making everything seem a little too bright, too sharp. Miriam read the notes I'd scribbled down about Lindsay's call. Her expression darkened by the second. This strengthens your fraud case, she said crisply. Shows premeditation, shows intent to financially exploit you. But it's just a phone call, I said. No recordings, no signatures. Miriam nodded, tapping her pen against the desk thoughtfully. True. But if it comes to it, we can subpoena the vineyard for planning records, emails, anything linking them to this plot. The word plot sounded so dramatic, like something from a bad TV movie. But that's what it was, wasn't it? A slow, cold plot. Not an impulsive mistake. A deliberate plan. Miriam leaned forward. I recommend we proceed. File the police report. Freeze any joint accounts or open lines of credit you might not know about. I nodded, because there was no way in hell I was letting them sink their claws any deeper. Not now. Not ever again. That evening, I sat on my porch, watching the sky melt into shades of pink and gold. The air smelled like jasmine and fresh-cut grass. For once, the world didn't feel heavy. It felt possible. I wasn't naive. I knew the road ahead would be ugly. Court dates, lawyer fees, maybe even standing in a room and seeing my daughter, my only daughter, wearing a look of betrayal that would slice me to the bone. But I also knew this. I'd already survived the worst thing a mother could endure. Being used, being discarded, being seen as nothing but a wallet with a beating heart. And I was still standing, still breathing, still me. Donna came out and dropped into the chair beside me, 2 mugs of steaming tea in her hands. To peace, she said, clinking her mug gently against mine. I smiled. To finally fighting for ourselves, I corrected. And for the first time in a long, long while, I knew I was going to win. It was just past dusk when the knock came. I knew before I even opened the door. Some things you just feel, like the shift of air before a storm. Donna was inside washing dishes, humming under her breath, when I wiped my hands on a towel and pulled the door open. There stood Emily. No makeup, eyes red and swollen, hair hanging limp around her shoulders. If you'd told me a month ago, I'd see her looking like this, like the little girl who used to come running to me after a scraped knee, I might have crumbled. But not now. Not after everything. Mom, she croaked, voice breaking on the word. Please, can we talk? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Part of me wanted to pull her into a hug. In the end, I stepped aside without a word and let her in. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. No tea, no coffee, no armor of small talk to hide behind. Just raw, ugly silence. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I messed up. I said nothing. Let her stew in it. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, she rushed on. Brian kept saying it would work out, that you had plenty of money, that you wouldn't even notice. Her hands twisted in her lap, restless, frantic. I sat perfectly still. I knew it was wrong, she said, her voice cracking. When he asked me to forge your signature, I didn't think you'd ever find out. She looked up, eyes shining with tears. I'm sorry, Mom. A bead of silence stretched between us, taut as wire. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. Sorry you did it? I asked. Or, sorry you got caught? Her mouth opened, closed. No answer. Exactly. I steepled my fingers, steady as a mountain. I'm pressing charges, Emily. Her face crumpled. Mom, please, she gasped. If you do that, my life is over. I raised an eyebrow. What about my life, Emily? My credit? My future? You didn't think twice about putting a noose around my neck when you needed something. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Brian made me, she sobbed. He said if I didn't go along, he'd leave me. I was scared, Mom. I stared at her. Maybe there was some truth in it. Brian was a manipulator, no doubt about that. But fear is no excuse for betrayal. You don't destroy the people who love you just because you're scared. You fight for them. You fight with them. And she'd chosen otherwise, over and over again. I didn't raise you to be weak, I said quietly. Or cruel. She sobbed harder, head bowed. And I felt nothing. No anger, no glee, no crushing sadness, just a quiet acceptance. Somewhere along the way, the daughter I raised had lost herself. Maybe to Brian, maybe to greed, maybe to something broken inside her that I could never quite fix. And that was no longer my burden to carry. After a long while, Emily wiped her eyes and looked up. There's something else, she whispered. I stiffened. Of course there was. There's another loan, she said, voice quivering. Bigger. And it's tied to your house. For a second, the words didn't register. Then they hit like a punch to the gut. My house? I breathed. She nodded, miserable. Brian. He found a loophole. Some paperwork you signed during the wedding planning, when you thought it was vendor contracts. He slipped in a lien. I stared at her, every muscle in my body going rigid. You're telling me, I said, my voice low and lethal, that my house, the one piece of security I have, is collateral for your debts? She nodded again, fresh tears spilling. And it's not just one debt, she whispered. It's 3. I stood so fast, the chair skidded backward with a screech. Donna came rushing in, towel still in hand. What's wrong? She demanded. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too busy fighting the roar in my ears. Emily stood too, frantic, reaching for me. Mom, please. If you file the police report, the lien gets contested. If you let me fix it, I can get Brian to refinance. We can make it right. I stared at her outstretched hand. The same hand that had signed my name without a thought. The same hand that had spent my money like it was pocket lint. And I knew, with a bone-deep certainty, she wasn't here to confess. She wasn't here to make amends. She was here to save herself. And she was perfectly willing to drag me under to do it. No, I said, my voice shaking with fury and something far colder. She flinched like I'd struck her. You're not fixing a damn thing, I said, voice rising. You and that sorry excuse for a husband are going to pay for what you did. Donna stepped forward, planting herself between us. You heard her, she said, voice like a hammer. Get out. Emily hesitated. One last desperate look, searching my face for the mother who used to bail her out of every storm. But that mother was gone. Emily stumbled back, tears streaming, and fled into the night. I stood there for a long moment, the kitchen light buzzing overhead, the house too quiet. Then I sat down at the table, pulled the police report out of the folder, and started filling it in by hand. Slow, steady, final. Because some battles, some betrayals, you don't come back from. The next few days passed in a haze of paperwork and tight, aching silence. I met with Miriam again, this time bringing every scrap of documentation I could find. Every old bill, every contract, every half-forgotten receipt tucked into kitchen drawers and shoeboxes. She was a force of nature, filing injunctions, contesting liens, moving faster than I could even track. Still, the weight of it all pressed heavy on my chest. I wasn't just fighting Emily and Brian anymore. I was fighting years of conditioning. The old voices in my head whispering, "Be nice, be forgiving. Family is everything." But sometimes, family is just the first place you learn how to bleed. And I was done bleeding. It was late Thursday afternoon when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was Kelly, the wedding planner. I stared at the screen, debating, then sighed and answered. "Mrs. Carter," Kelly gushed, her voice suddenly slick with apology. "I heard about the situation with Emily and Brian. I just wanted to say, if you need a statement from me, for legal purposes, I'm willing." I blinked. "You're willing?" I repeated, skeptical. "Yes," she rushed on. I didn't know how bad it was at first. I mean, they said some awful things during the planning, but I figured, families fight, right? And now, with everything public," her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, "my business is suffering. No one wants to hire a planner associated with drama." Ah, there it was. Not guilt, not conscience, survival. But frankly, I didn't care about her motives. If Kelly was willing to provide proof that Emily and Brian plotted to isolate and exploit me, I'd take it. "Email me everything you have," I said briskly. Texts, emails, voicemails, every scrap. Kelly agreed so fast I barely finished the sentence. By dinner time, my inbox was overflowing. Screenshots, text logs, even a voice recording. And that's when the real bomb dropped. Because in one voicemail, one carelessly saved little time bomb, Brian's voice came through crystal clear. "Don't worry, babe. Once your mom pays for the wedding, we'll figure out a way to get her house too. She's too soft to fight back, always has been." I sat there listening to it again and again, my fingers trembling. Too soft, always has been. Brian's words slithered through my ears like poison. But underneath the hurt, a spark ignited. No, not anymore. I forwarded everything straight to Miriam without a second thought. Let the courts hear it. Let the world hear it. If they wanted a war, they were about to find out. They picked the wrong damn woman. Later that night, just as I was starting to drift into uneasy sleep, my phone buzzed once more. This time, it was a text from an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Carter, you don't know me, but I think I can help you. Please call me. It's about Brian." My stomach twisted. Could it be another setup? Another trap? Donna, who was staying over again, bless her stubborn heart, read the message over my shoulder. "Call 'em," she said bluntly. "What more can they take? Your trust? They already spent that." She had a point. I tapped the number. It rang twice. And then a woman answered. Her voice was tight, nervous. "Mrs. Carter? My name's Jessica. I used to date Brian. Before he met Emily." I stiffened. "And?" I said cautiously. "And he's done this before," she blurted out. "Not with weddings, but with older women. Family friends. Women with money." I gripped the phone tighter. "What exactly do you mean?" Jessica took a shaky breath. "Brian cozies up, makes them feel sorry for him, gets access to their accounts, their credit, drains them dry, and disappears." Her voice cracked. "He tried it with my aunt. Nearly ruined her. I closed my eyes, bile rising in my throat. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, voice hoarse. "Because you're the first person who's fighting back," Jessica said fiercely, the first one not rolling over and paying him off. "And because my aunt didn't get justice. I want you to." I swallowed hard. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't even just about Emily. Brian was a predator. A seasoned, practiced predator. And by standing up to him, I wasn't just saving myself. I was drawing a line in the sand he couldn't cross again. "Thank you, Jessica," I said quietly. "You have no idea what this means." "I'll testify if you need me," she said. "Whatever it takes." We hung up and I sat there in the dark, phone still clutched in my hand. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. This was a reckoning. And I was ready for it. By the time Friday rolled around, I had a file thick enough to make a lawyer drool. Donna and I spent the morning at Miriam's office, going over every last shred of evidence. Brian's slimy voicemail, Jessica's statement, screenshots, texts, receipts. It felt good. Like stacking sandbags before a storm. Preparing, not panicking. "This is ironclad," Miriam said, tapping the folder with a satisfied little thwack. "We're moving ahead with fraud charges. Also filing for an emergency injunction to block any liens against your property." I nodded, a deep sense of steadiness settling in my bones. Let them come. I wasn't backing down. It didn't take long for word to start spreading. First came the murmurs at the grocery store. Little side-eye glances and whispers as I walked down the bread aisle. Then came the messages. Old friends. Old neighbors. Even old coworkers who hadn't so much as liked a Facebook post in years. "Saw what's happening, Susan. Standing with you. About time someone called him out. Let me know if you need character witnesses. We'd be proud to vouch for you." I hadn't realized how many people were quietly rooting for me. Maybe that's the funny thing about betrayal. It makes you think you're all alone. But sometimes, it just clears the dead weight out of your life, so the real ones can step forward. The local paper called next. A polite young reporter, asking if I wanted to comment on the civil suit filed against two local newlyweds regarding alleged elder financial abuse. The words made me blink. Elder abuse? I still thought of myself as that spry woman chasing toddlers through the PTA bake sale, not some fragile senior citizen needing protection. But facts were facts. And if slapping the word elder onto it meant exposing Brian and Emily's rot, so be it. I agreed to an interview. Short, sweet, to the point. No mudslinging. No dramatic tears. Just the truth. "I loved my daughter," I said, when they asked for a quote. And sometimes, love means standing up for yourself when the people you raised forget how to respect you. They printed it front and center the next morning. And let me tell you, there's a power in reclaiming your own story. But naturally, Brian and Emily weren't going to roll over quietly. No, they had one more card up their sleeve. And it was a doozy. Saturday morning, I was out front watering my dusty little garden when Donna barreled out the front door, waving her phone like a torch. "You need to see this," she panted. I set down the watering can, heart already hammering. Donna shoved the phone into my hands. There it was. A GoFundMe page, started by Emily Carter Walker and Brian Walker. Title? "Help us fight injustice. False accusations are destroying our lives." I stared at it, mouth dry. The description was even worse. They painted themselves as victims, claimed I was senile, paranoid, that I'd fabricated the fraud claims out of misplaced bitterness after being excluded from the wedding for behavioral issues. They even posted an old photo of me, one Donna snapped after my back surgery when I was pale and exhausted and looking every bit my age, to make me seem frail, unstable. Bile rose in my throat. They were playing every dirty trick in the book. And the worst part? People were donating. Small amounts, sure. $20 here, 50 there. But it was growing. And fast. I stood there on the porch, phone trembling in my hand. Donna hovered, fuming. "Tell me we're suing them for this too," she growled. I nodded slowly, my vision narrowing to a pinpoint. "Defamation," I said, my voice steady. "Add it to the list." Because dragging my name through the mud? Weaponizing my age against me? Trying to milk strangers for sympathy? It was the last straw. No more second chances. No more motherly guilt. From this point forward, I wasn't just defending my reputation. I was reclaiming my life. Every inch of it. That afternoon, I met with Miriam again. We documented the GoFundMe, filed an additional complaint for defamation and fraudulent fundraising. Miriam even suggested we push for punitive damages. It's rare, she said with a shark's grin. But in a case this ugly, we've got a shot. I left her office feeling 10 feet taller. Because here's the thing. When you stop apologizing for protecting yourself, when you stop carrying the weight of other people's bad choices, you don't just survive, you thrive. You become the storm they never saw coming. By Sunday, my world had settled into a strange kind of rhythm. Wake up, check the lawsuit updates, block a few more trolls on Facebook, sip my coffee slowly, steadily, like armor-building ritual. Donna stayed by my side, sharp as a hawk, ready to clap back at anyone who so much as looked at me sideways. Things were finally starting to tilt in my favor. Vendors from the wedding reached out quietly, one by one, confirming Emily and Brian's shady dealings. The local paper printed a follow-up story, this time highlighting Jessica's brave testimony about Brian's pattern of manipulation. For once, it felt like justice might actually win. But wouldn't you know it? Just when you start climbing out of the pit, someone you trust decides to give you a shove. It happened Monday morning. I was folding laundry in the living room when my phone buzzed with a message from a name I hadn't seen in years. Linda Morrison. Linda had been a neighbor back when Emily was a teenager. The kind of woman who always smelled faintly of cinnamon gum and kept a standing invite to every potluck, every church breakfast, every community fundraiser. I hadn't spoken to her in a long while, but the message was short. Susan, call me. It's urgent. About Donna. My stomach twisted into a tight knot. I called immediately. Linda answered on the first ring. Susan, she said, voice low and urgent. You need to know. Donna's been talking to Emily. The world tilted a little under my feet. What? I rasped. I heard it myself. Linda rushed on. At the pharmacy this morning. Donna was on the phone with someone, loud as you please, telling them to stay calm, play nice, that she'd find a way to get you to back off before it got to court. I sat down hard on the couch. Are you sure it was Emily she was talking to? I croaked. Linda hesitated, then said, she mentioned my niece and, quote, the kids don't deserve to have their lives ruined. And, Susan, she said your pride was blinding you. My chest tightened painfully. Niece. Of course. Donna wasn't just my sister. She was Emily's aunt. Blood runs thick, doesn't it? Even when it runs dirty. I hung up and sat there, staring at nothing for a long while. Donna, who had been my shield, my rock, my safe person these last few months, had been playing both sides, feeding comfort to me with one hand, feeding strategy to Emily with the other. I wasn't naive. I knew family loyalties get messy, complicated. But this was a knife between the ribs. And worse? It explained a lot. Little things. The way Donna sometimes hesitated when I talked about filing charges. The way she'd wrung her hands when I said I wanted to press for punitive damages. The way she always said, we should be the bigger people, like it was a warning, not a comfort. God, how blind I'd been. Blind because I wanted to trust her. Because after losing Emily, losing Donna too would have been too much to face. But life wasn't giving me the easy way out this time. It was handing me hard choices with no sugarcoating. When Donna came by that afternoon carrying a pie from the bakery downtown, I met her at the door. Didn't even invite her in. She blinked, thrown off by my cold expression. Sue? What's wrong? I folded my arms across my chest. You tell me, Donna. She hesitated just a fraction too long. Enough. You've been talking to Emily, I said, my voice flat. Her mouth opened. Closed. Susan? She started. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I snapped. You were trying to steer me away from pressing charges. Trying to keep the family together. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Sue, she's your daughter." I shook my head, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "No, she was my daughter. Now she's just another con artist with my last name." Donna's face crumpled. I thought maybe, if I could get you both to back down, we could fix this, keep it private, before the whole town turns it into a circus." My heart twisted painfully. "You thought saving face mattered more than saving me," I said quietly. And that was the real betrayal, wasn't it? Not the conversations, not the schemes, the belief that my pain was less important than appearances. I stepped back from the doorway. "You need to leave," I said. "Sue, please." Now. The door clicked shut between us. Soft. Final. I sagged against the wood for a long moment, breathing in shallow, aching gulps. Another goodbye. Another loss. But as painful as it was, I knew it was necessary. Sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to cut the rope tethering you to people who'd happily watch you drown. And I wasn't about to drown for anyone ever again.